Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We're getting the Maryland Crab Cake Tour back out on the road beginning this week. This next guest is going to say, why'd you invite me in on a Zoom, man? I used to live down in Canton. We're going to be down at Mama's on the Half Shell on Friday having the delicious Scunny crab cake, probably a hubcap margarita or two before it's all over with. We get to El Guapo next Thursday in Catonsville with Don Moeller. That's the 10th. The 18th, we're at Costas in Dundalk in the afternoon on Friday. That's after St. Patrick's Day. So take it easy on the 17th. Then the 23rd, we'll be at Fadley's in the morning doing our thing at Lexington Market. This guy travels up and down 83. If you see a guy in Canton or around Patterson Park or up in Hamden, it looks like Evan Washburn from CBS, fresh back from the Super Bowl. I saw him buzzing around Radio Row, and he was going to sit down, and then he didn't. And then I chased him around last week and this week, and I honest to God thought CBS had the game. Evan, I don't watch the game, dude. I'm in the upper deck, and I'm just watching the game. I thought you were like working, and it turns out you were just like on an LA junket. So welcome to the show, and happy you didn't have to work as hard as I thought you worked Super Bowl week.
Yeah, that was an off week in terms of the real grind of it. It was fun to be out there. LA obviously has a lot to offer beyond just Radio Row and football, so that's a nice respite after the season. But yeah, man, always good to be with you, and it was fun seeing you back at it on Radio Row. It had a similar vibe than that it's had in years past, so it felt like we were making our way back.
You know, I was over at Wise Market buying breakfast like Sunday morning, and the manager stopped me, Alan. He's like, "Hey, dude, I was listening to the Super Bowl, man. You had like a lot of great guests." And I'm like, 3 weeks before you saw me there, I didn't think I was going because of COVID. I didn't think anybody else was going to go. Then I kind of got convinced that like a lot of people were going to go, and the LA thing. I thought it'd be more like actors and celebrities and rock stars. Apparently, the SAG card kept everybody out of there because of indoor testing. Like, I guess it's a red carpet reporter thing that if it's outside, it would have been okay, but Radio Row was inside and it wasn't okay. So it wasn't like normal or well attended. I always wonder what a Super Bowl was going to be like in LA. I didn't think the Rams were going to be in it. They were going to be the toast of the town. But the one thing I gathered is, you know, they can break the LA Rams there, pop down two teams if they want. I don't know that it's a football community. You know what I mean? It's really weird. It was fun. It was good, but nobody was crying because the Rams won. It's just not that kind of place. And it really got me thinking about community and sports. And I see you in your purple top, that it's different here. The association to a franchise and what it means and how it's provincial, it's just different.
No doubt. And look, there's a lot to do in LA County and surrounding areas that you can't do here. And the obsession for whether it be, you know, the Baltimore Ravens or, you know, in the spring with the Orioles, and even though they've had their struggles, I think it's because it's the one of a few distractions from the day-to-day life, whether it be positive or negative. And then you build a connection to that organization, to that team. And it's something you count on. It's a weekly tradition for football fans. It can be a nightly tradition in the summer for baseball fans. And I think when you live in places that, while, you know, we love it here, don't have all the options that a place like LA would have, then you're going to have some people that are living and dying figuratively by the result of their team week in and week out.
Well, I hope it's not the baseball team around here. We're trying to get them to the field so they can lose 100 games this year. The longer the lockout holds out, the less chance they have of losing 100 games. So I'm feeling better about it. Evan Washburn is here from CBS. He does live here in Baltimore. Let's get on to the Ravens and what all this means, because I guess the residue of the Super Bowl is the Bengals didn't win, right? But the residue of all of it is they're pretty good and they're young, and that kid could have won, and the kid had a lead with 2 minutes left to go in the game. So for the Ravens and this offseason, it's as important as it's ever been, because this thing's teetering a little bit on 6 losses in a row and a quarterback that's injured and a roster that was injured, that there's so many questions for their offseason. But the first is, who's coming back healthy? Is Ronnie Stanley Ronnie Stanley? Is Nick Boyle? Where's Peters? Where's Marlon Humphrey? Some of these feel like they're related to their job, knee injury. Some of them don't, pec injury. But the first thing for the Ravens is just assessing the health of their own players, because on the face of it, last September 1st, they were good enough to be that team in LA a couple of weeks ago. As the season went on, It wasn't about Eric's ability to pick players or John's ability to coach him up or Roman's offensive scheme. They didn't have any players. I mean, and that's obvious. And I think even 6 weeks after the season's over, 8 weeks after the season's over, I look at it as like one big incomplete, very, very difficult to assess what happened last year, but more to say, all right, who's going to be with the parade this year and how are we going to slice this thing together? And these next 4-6 weeks for the Ravens organization, the most important of the year.
Couldn't agree more. And when it comes to the health, I'm a pretty confident or a big believer in these, with what we have with modern medicine and what these guys athletically can do and the way they take care of their bodies, understanding that the Ronnie Stanley one's concerning because that was from a previous year. I can't really speak to the specifics of any of the injuries, but I would say more often than not, a J.K. Dobbins should look the exact same coming back from a torn ACL, basically what will end up being 12 months later.
Yeah, it's fascinating you'd say that because I agree the same thing. It's Humpty Dumpty. You put them back together, you sew them up, you put them in rehab. Like my back feels better than it did in October because I got the needles and I did my rehab. You assume, but that's dangerous with a $150 million football player. I mean,
and I think that the positive of what was a nightmare season is that Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh know exactly what they have in terms of a full roster because they had what they had. They lost the top tier, then they got to the second tier, and they got to the third tier at times when COVID things were happening. So exactly, there's no mystery heading into this offseason about where you find vulnerability, where you feel like you have strength, and what are the things that have to happen, to your point, over the next 4 to 6 weeks, really ends up being 8 weeks, to put themselves in position post-draft into the OTAs and into the mini camps to look at our team once healthy and with where we've handled areas that we felt like were real problem spots. If they're able to do that, and I have faith, especially the front office's ability to identify that, then I think they're in a good spot to compete. But it's going to be an incredibly arduous challenge to win in that division because the division has now become as deep as there is in the NFL. I mean, you can look at the AFC West and say it's more challenging because the level of quarterback play, but man, the AFC North now is as challenging as there is in the league, and you've got to build your team to handle it. So that's really what's in front of this group, and the priorities to me, and that's where I don't think that's been identified is what are the things that have to happen over the next 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks beyond getting healthy, to your point, for this team to be in a better position to start the season than they were a year ago.
See, I'm not ready to hand you the fact that like the quarterbacks are better somewhere else until I figure out who Pittsburgh's suiting up with. Because I mean, if Aaron Rodgers winds up in Pittsburgh or if Russell Wilson winds up in Pittsburgh, I think it's a different play there for them than if it's Mason Rudolph or whoever their draft pick will be at 20 or whatever. Evan Washburn is here. We're talking all things football. Certainly during the tender period, we got combine going on, we got free agency. Then we're going to have a draft in a couple of weeks. And to your point, the Ravens are built for this time of the year, much more so than other teams that are like, we got 10 teams out there looking for a new coach, right? Trying to figure out who their leadership is. The Steelers are hiring a general manager, running around with Joe Ortiz, who was running around with the Giants a couple weeks ago. These teams don't have what the Ravens have had, which is the last 8 weeks, pounding sand on 6 losses in a row after starting the season 8-3 and not making the playoffs. There's a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of we need to get better out in Owings Mills. And not that it's not after they lose a second round playoff game, because it is, but I think there's something about the way this thing went down and the amount of time that they've had to take a look at all of this and assess their cap situation and knowing where they are with Lamar, with this sort of sandwich year they're going to have before they're going to have to franchise him or give him $40 million a year, and what that timeline will look like. And I don't think there's any doubt about it. Signing Lamar now would help the Ravens get cap space, but it's not something they have to do at all. I mean, and that's just not even hyperbole. That's more like, well, we can franchise him. There's no risk of losing him at all. He's not going anywhere. We'll pay as we go. And if he's not willing to sign a now contract, then we'll just have him go play football. And I don't think they're worried about Lamar in that way, because Lamar's shown the one thing that that they drafted him for, which is he likes to get better. He's trying to get better today. He's more pissed off about them losing than they are.
I would agree with that. I would watch a reality show on the contract negotiations and just story of Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, it's not unprecedented for a player not to have an agent and to handle their own negotiations, but this one feels a little bit different based off of the position, the fact that it's his first deal, and with where quarterback money has gone in the last 2 seasons with deals like the Mahomes deal, the Josh Allen deal. And the idea that Eric DeCosta is literally talking to Lamar Jackson about deal points on a contract that could hover, close to $500 million, depending on, the way you look at it, is wild. So how that plays out, to your point, is something that the Ravens seem, at least outwardly, to be comfortable with, whether it be being patient and going on Lamar's timetable, or being in a position where they're doing, year-to-year deals. But
this is good labor negotiation, right? In general, while the baseball people are asleep, the football people are like, hey, we did a deal for this. He's not going anywhere. We franchise him.
Well, you say that, but what we're seeing more and more in the NFL is akin to the NBA, where if a player is disgruntled, they're going to find a way to work themselves out of a bad position. I mean, Matthew Stafford was with Detroit and basically said, I'd like to be traded. And they felt like they would do that based off of his years of service. I mean, the Aaron Rodgers thing, depending on who you believe or what time of day it is, seems to be frustrated with Green Bay and would like to be traded to another team. So
I'll do my Mike Tomlin. We want volunteers, not hostages.
Yeah. And, Russell Wilson's one that's going to be playing out here over the next few weeks and few months. Does he stay in Seattle? He's, through his agent, been open to the idea of certain destinations. Deshaun Watson for entirely different reasons. So point being, the quarterback market's a lot more volatile now than it ever was or has been in years past. And I think Lamar, he's smart. He's seeing that as well. So that's where, if I'm the Ravens, I am a bit, concerned if the longer this thing plays out and we don't have him happy and locked up for the right number of years at the right price.
Evan Washburn is here. He's happy and locked up at CBS. And what do you do? What's next for you? Are you combining? You drafting? You Vegasing? What's happening? Take me to Vegas with you, man.
I wish I was doing all those things, but no, this is a fun time. I'm shifted into college basketball mode. I got a game tomorrow at VCU. Then I'll head to St. Louis for the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament, then to Vegas for the Mountain West Tournament next week. And then I'll do the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament on CBS and Turner. So this is kind of like I always call it like a 5 or 4 week sprint.
Is there a chance you're going to be on True TV?
Oh, no doubt.
Once a year, baby.
I've done plenty of runs on True TV. Seen the promos for what's to follow us. It's always interesting to know what shows are making their debut. So yeah, that runs me through basically the first week of April, and then or last week of March, first week of April, and then we'll do some college lacrosse here in the area, and then it's summertime. So yeah,
I think of you as an NFL guy. I think of you as the guy following Super Bowl games.
That's how I identify myself, and that's where I find I enjoy and look. You spend from the last week of July when training camp starts till the first week of February. So what is that? 6 months? Over 6 months? I mean, half the year is spent doing the NFL, but it is cool in the off season while you're tracking everything at a place like CBS. You do get to dip your toe in other stuff, and college basketball is, always been a passion, growing up around here, especially with teams like Maryland. We saw get a big win yesterday. That was cool.
Well, it was cool seeing Gary run around, right? I was waiting for Mouton to go diving for a loose ball. That's what I was waiting on.
Well, they got that win over Ohio State, and it's been a tough year for the Terps. But for them to win that game with that team being honored at halftime or whenever it was, felt very.
You a Terps guy back there too?
Oh, for sure. I mean, my best friend's dad had awesome seats, so I went to a lot of those games. I went to Maryland basketball camp growing up. I mean, I was
a fan of the Washington Commanders as a kid. It feels to me like you might have been. Were
I
you
wouldn't say
Washington or were you
fan. That was the
Baltimore?
team we watched because
Okay.
I'm 37. So the Ravens showed up when I was in fifth or sixth grade, one of those.
But you were in a
Uh,
burgundy and gold household.
well, my dad was a Colts fan, so he
Oh, okay. I didn't
watched.
know that. Okay. I
Yeah,
like
we
your
grew
dad.
up.
I like your
We grew
dad
up.
now. Good.
He was born in Baltimore, grew up in here, and then moved to Serena Park, and then we grew up I lived in Annapolis.
But in
So yeah,
Annapolis, you
we
could be whatever
watched
you want to be in Annapolis, though, right?
Oh, no doubt. But when the Ravens showed up, it became a Ravens town. I mean, when they won that first Super Bowl, it was a real big deal. I
So you were
remember I was
fifth
playing
grade when the
high
team
school
came here.
basketball.
How do you not love Ray Lewis when you're in fifth grade?
Oh, I do. I mean, I was a
Right.
huge fan. That's what I'm saying. I mean, high school was all about that team. I'll never forget playing a high school basketball game, and it was a playoff game, and no one was in the stands because they were playing. The Ravens were playing the Titans. It was on a Sunday or something like that.
Oh
Or
yeah.
maybe it was a Saturday. It was one of those Titans playoff games, and it's like a big game, and no one's there except for a couple parents that couldn't get away to watch that game. So yeah,
So
no
the
man, it was fun, and I think when you fall in this age range, you kind of can sample around. And then I don't know about you, but when you're in the business, it's a little bit different too. I mean, I don't root for teams; I root for people more than anything.
yeah, I feel the same. But like Eric Weddle winning, how do you not feel good
That was
about that,
cool.
right?
Great point. Great point.
One
Yeah,
of the
I mean,
great stories ever for Eric
it
Weddle.
really felt like a Disney movie.
Yeah, and if you spend any time around that dude at all, he is unique. I mean, against all the other people I've covered, there's a level of enthusiasm that comes
Yes.
with him that's just different, especially in the modern era. It's almost
Yeah,
throwback.
he's a free spirit, is how I would put it.
Throwback guy. Evan Washburn is here from CBS. I didn't realize you were doing all this basketball and lacrosse. I thought they just let you go sun yourself. You know, I mean, I thought you were working hard out in LA. I wasn't even sure. I know the next couple of weeks here, I guess for our heartbeat with baseball, not like happening in the normal way, it puts even more of my attention at least onto the football team because the football team is our hope here, right?
Yeah.
Like the Terps are just trying to hire a coach at this point, right? The football team, no offense, they're not winning a national championship. The only hope we have here is really the football team. And I think that's what makes it hard. And I guess these next 6 weeks for Eric, who's so good at this and cap space and where they're going to be and who they're going to draft and who the apple of their eye, their Kevin Zeitler is going to be this year that they identify. That all happens in the next couple of weeks, and that's still a lot of fun for me trying to figure out who they're going to draft.
I mean, the draft season has become, and free agency have become as entertaining as anything. I mean, I think the beauty of the NFL is that Sundays are appointment television or appointment at the stadium. But the fact that now, I mean, the combine's in prime time this week. I mean, the quarterback's throwing, and this is not even a heralded quarterback class. Thursday night on ABC, I think, is going to be one of the most watched things of the week. And that, to your point,
Because
kind
it
of
is a helmet.
falls in line with the idea that we all, and look, it's partly based off fantasy football. I mean, everyone thinks they're a GM, and this is the time to practice being a GM and living on mock drafts and trying to see where your team's going to land on, you know, whatever position group or player might be. But you start to fall in love with the players, the college ones, now, and then you spend the next whatever it is 6 weeks or so ahead of the draft determining who do you have to have, and there'll be a few, I'm sure, that Ravens fans will want, and maybe it'll work out that way, maybe it won't. But I feel like last year they got what they wanted in Rashad Bateman, and I think he's going to be special.
See, in the old days, you and I would have gotten Chinese food together. I would have hung out at the facility back when you were Comcast Sports Netting with Brent and all that.
Yeah.
I just always assumed, and maybe this is just a bias that I have. I just always saw you as a DC guy. I sort of thought somehow, some way, you had burgundy and gold underwear, you know,
Nope.
back when you were a kid. And hey man, my respect for you has grown, and I already had a lot of respect for you. But I would have thought that you were DC for some reason. Maybe it's the stigma of Comcast Sportsnet, like where you came from, that it was
Oh
such a
yeah.
DC. It was a DC thing. Everybody, all of you felt like you were DC.
Yeah, but Brent, Deuce, and I bucked at that pretty heavily, I would say. I mean, that more than me, because they were actually full-time employees. I was just hanging around trying to see what this business was about. But
Did you ever get thrown out of Redskin Park back in the old days, or no? You weren't a part of
I
that.
only
You were always-
went, honestly, as a as an employee there, I might never have actually. I mean, I've been there a bunch
Well, I saw you
now.
Ravens for years and years and all the time, and I guess it occurred to me that you weren't embedded with both teams, but I figured at some point you had to go to Redskin Park where they pulled the shades down and all that.
Mm-mm.
No, good for you.
Because I would be in the studio in Bethesda, working some of the grunt jobs, or I was hanging out, carrying Deuce's camera or tripod and helping Brent set up for live shots. So it was I was being indoctrinated into the Baltimore sports media group, and I'm very thankful for it because you're a big part of it, but there's some characters. When you think about it, Aaron Wilson, who obviously you can stay in touch with. I think he's still in Houston, and Ginn, so I know just retired a little while ago. I mean, it was a fun group. I mean, Jameson's still there too, but man, we had some good times on the road too.
And Luke is still your age, all you kids together these
That's
days.
right. Well, I think Luke was still a school teacher when I was doing the Comcast stuff.
Hey, but how many Super Bowls? Have you done 2 Super Bowls now on the field?
Three.
I cheated you out of one.
50, 55, and whatever we just had down in Tampa, whatever one that was.
That was 55.
Okay, so that was, yeah, so
56.
50. Oh, yeah. So 50, 53, the New England, LA one in Atlanta, and then 55 in Tampa during the heart of the pandemic, which was super weird.
I've attended 28, but I've never been on TV for one. So you're 3 ahead of me here.
Yeah.
Not bad for a kid from Annapolis. Evan Washburn here. If you see him buzzing around Baltimore, having fruits and vegetables and waving, so wave back to him because he's still here in Baltimore. I love that you wore purple today. Probably just for you.
Just for you. Nice, I don't have much of it in my closet, but when I've got something like this going on, you got to pop it.
Yeah, looks better than orange today. Hey, I appreciate you, man. I hope we get a beer or some Chinese food or a crab cake or something like that. Come on out, participate in the crab cake tour, Evan. All right.
That sounds like a plan. It's gonna be tough to do the next couple of weeks, but once we slow down post March Madness, that sounds perfect.
The squeak of the sneakers on the hardwood. He'll be down on the court. Evan Washburn from CBS joining us here, formerly Comcast Sportsnet. And what have we learned here? We learned that he never liked the Washington football team anyway. That's good. That's good to know. Brings him into the family. Different than Chick Hernandez and some of your colleagues over there that always have to give a hard time with. How's Chick doing? Is he still hitting the golf ball?
I'm sure he is. He's calling hoops games. He called some college football for CBS Sports Network, our cable network, who I do plenty of stuff with as well. And he's doing great. I mean, he's really transitioned well into being a play-by-play person. And it was fun seeing him. We were in DC doing the Georgetown DePaul game last Thursday, and he's still the mayor of that town, man. I mean, Chick, he can walk into any spot and the DMV really, and somebody knows him and is ready to help him out.
That's why I give him a hard time, because he's known for
dude.
Washington sports coverage, and we're trying to keep our distance here. Evan Washburn joining us here of Baltimore. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. You can find us out on the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. I'll be at Mama's on the Half Shell in Canton this week on Friday, and then we're moving it around a little bit from date to date. We're going to be next Thursday the 10th at El Guapo over in Catonsville. I'm really looking forward to margaritas for everybody here in March. And then we'll have the post St. Patrick's Day on the 18th at Costas and Dundalk, and then the 23rd in the morning at Fadley. So crab cake a week, trying to go light. I'm going to get into it a little more heavier in May. And then, of course, we're doing 31 crab cakes in 31 days for our 31st anniversary. That will happen in August. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. Let yourself play. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, monitoring all things Ravens and draft and combine and all that good stuff, and talking some BaltimorePositive.com.